All right, Mopar people, welcome back to the channel. I'm just Mopar Joe, and I brought a real body man to help check my work on our 68 Barracuda hardtop here for Mr. Darren Blake at Blake's Muscle Car. And I'm gonna let him at the end of this tell you all the good, bad, and ugly things that I've done to this. But right now he's just double checking me with a long block, and I'm gonna pick one up myself instead of just watching him work. So we'll be right back. So here's Brian. Hey, Brian.
How are you, Joe?
I'm tired, man. We've been booking it out here.
Yep.
That front panel was never sanded until today, so.
Yep. We had a little bit of hammer and dolly work to do on it, and then a couple little low spots right here to contend with. For the most part, we just block sanded this car just to double check. Joe's body work looks really well. We just wanted to clean up these edges, make sure they were nice and sharp and straight. So we block sanded down both sides. Had to fix, found a little dent here.
Yep.
That we had to repair. One more in the front fender over here. The rest of it we just block sanded with guide coat. Like Joe always says, guide coat is your friend.
That's, I got to have it. But.
You know, and the older I get, the less I can see, so it helps me tremendously nowadays. And the car was pretty straight. You know, we've got some breakthroughs here through the primer and the direct to metal primer. But we blocked it all, and it's all straight and square. Everything lines up and fits correctly. We're at the point now we're going to go back. We had to repair a little area right here.
There was that dent was left over, and I never saw it until I put the 2K all the way on the entire car. So everything's been 2K'd once except that panel.
Yeah. And
that was direct metal there. So we're going to prime over that, prime over our spots, and then 2K the entire car again except the top, and we'll 2K that one big spot over there. So we got a couple more coats. And I think after those coats, what happens, Brian?
At that point, we need to walk around, double check for any pinholes, any issues we might have. Clean the car really good. Roll it outside, wash it, wash under the fender wells, get everything as clean as possible. And then pull it back inside, wet sand it. Wash it again once it's wet sanded. And then we're ready for sealer and base coat and clear.
Boom.
Yep. You know, it sounds like a quick process, but you've got a day of cleaning and wet sanding once we get primer on you. And then you've got half a day of masking everything up and double checking. And start to finish, you're probably, you know, of course you're not spraying the entire time, but with your flash times, you're probably 3.5 hours to paint the car. So, you know, by the time you tape it and paint it, that's another full day. And then you get to go to the great part. You get to color sand the bucket. Which,
hopefully it doesn't take much of that.
Right.
Let's
a lot of times I cheat nowadays. I will, instead of color sanding and buffing, I will come back and cut it with 600 or 800 grit. Get it cleaned up, wet sand the whole thing with like 600 grit. Take out any texture, any dust nibs. Come back and put 2 more coats clear on it.
Boom.
So then you actually end up, you're sanding a coat and a half off of it when you 600 it. So you're ending up with about three coats of clear on the whole vehicle.
Right.
Which is plenty of protection. Give you a nice deep shine.
Let's prime this thing. What do you think?
We're ready.
3 things.
The only 3 things I can tell you to improve on with your spray technique. Train yourself to watch that fan pattern as it hits the metal. As your gun is making that pass, your eyes should be right there and watching that fan as it touches the metal. Watch your overlap. You were getting a little bit wide.
Yeah.
That doesn't put as much material in the center area, and it tends to texture it up a little bit, so watch your overlap. Overlap can be crucial with clears because a little bit of dry texture is hard to sand out. A little too much overlap and then you've got a sag that is also hard to sand out. Practice makes perfect.
Yeah.
So number 1, train yourself to watch that pattern. Train yourself to pay attention to your overlap. And the 3rd thing, I've harped on it already, practice with your left hand. You need that. You need to be as efficient with your left hand spraying as you are with your right, because there's so many areas. Here you need to be dexterous where you can use either arm, and just like this windshield area, you need to be able to use your left hand. And just like I told you, when you get older, like I am, your arm and your shoulder starts wearing out, and it's nice to be able to switch to your left hand and get as slick a job on a roof or a hood left-handed as you do right-handed. When one arm starts wearing out, hurting a little bit, you just switch hands.
Right.
But those are the 3 things I saw that don't really need improvement. You just need to train yourself to be cognizant of those 3 things.
So hopefully y'all got something out of that. I know I did. Brian showed me things I've done basically wrong my entire body working life, body and paint stuff. I know it's going to drastically help my results. So special thanks to him. A couple of other little tricks I wanted to show and tell you about that he shared with me while we're here. And we can do a quick walk around the car and kind of look at these mostly finished results. I'm back, and it's been a couple days, so this primer's flashed off good. So one cool trick for a spreader like this, he said a lot of people they get down to the end and whatever, and they take their spreaders and the stuff's already hardened on here and whatever else. Any little pile that he had left on here, he put kind of center to the paper and then just stuck the spreader in it, and he said just leave it alone. You can come back later and pull it off. See how clean that edge is right there? And that's usually your wiping edge. So since that's done, most of this other stuff you can chip off with a razor blade or whatever. But you can see here, just bending the spreader around makes the stuff chip off. See? Nice clean edge again. I can use my fingernails instead of having to use a razor blade and scuffing the spreader up. So quick and easy tip. Saving a spreader. That's one good thing he showed me as well. So here's a fender edge, and the way I've always sanded this is basically go in 2 directions. I'm sanding this way on that edge and then that way on the edge, and it would make a pretty nice straight line through here. But at some point you do have to go over the edge instead of just leaving the straight line. Not that I'm mowing it down, but at least making it, using the block to actually kind of uniform the edge. Because he could walk by and show me and say, this is high, that's low, this is high. That was an example, but it's much better than it was. And I wanted him to double check my body work and stuff, just as a fresh pair of eyes come in. First thing was he started walking down the car and feeling. And, I've mentioned it before, using like a rag to go over any little body work and stuff or if it's a Bondo spot or filler spot. Sometimes your hand feels a lump or something. You put the rag on, the rag may breeze over it because it's kind of a cheat code for finding dents. Another good thing that he shared with me, I went around and did 2 coats on the whole car, and there was just a little bit left of my gun, and we had enough flash time. He said, let that other stuff flash, and whatever's left in your gun, put it on the body lines, because you're more likely, when I'm doing my finish sanding, to sand through here than I would be in the middle of a door, which is already pretty nice and straight. He did also mention clean out your holes. See how I had a little filler hanging over that? Before you paint, and that way you're not having to do it and it end up chipping off a piece of clear coat or something. So I got to get those cleaned out for emblems and door handles and whatever else. It's just little stuff there. But having the second set of eyes and somebody that's done this a long time really helps. And he told me in the body working world, just because it works for him doesn't mean it's always going to work for me. And there's, you know, everybody has their own opinion, but the final product and how long that final product lasts really makes the major difference. So I appreciate y'all watching, and thanks again to Brian. I'll catch y'all next time. Maybe we'll shoot some paint. All right, Mopar people.